180 Elevate is a social networking platform to connect, grow, and give with world-class experts and influencers to dig deeper into an area of life, which is an element to uplift our perspectives and humanity. Welcome to our fall season, where we honor the themes of agents of change, leaders from different realms of life and industries that have combined their passion and purpose to be the change in the world they wish to see. Good morning, Nicole. We are so glad to have you join us on the very last episode of our fall season of Agents of Change. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. And I didn't realize I was the last episode. So thank you.
Hey, last but the best of them all, I am sure. We are so excited to learn about your background, your personal and professional journey. So take us right through that. Tell us how you grew up, where you grew up,
Sure.
and how did you become this elevated leader you are in your world today, and some of the key learnings through that process.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again for having me. I was raised in Los Angeles by a single mother who was a Jamaican immigrant, and she was a domestic for a family and did everything, raised their kids, worked in their home, and then worked in their businesses. They were, entrepreneurs, small business owners. And she sacrificed quite a bit for me to become the woman I am today. She taught me that education would be our way out of poverty, and that I had to really do well in school, and that my life would be much better than hers because of it. And she would always teach me that, to whom much is given, much is expected, or we are blessed. We may not have much, but we are blessed, and there's always somebody who needs more than we have. And so that has been with me. Those two lessons have been with me through my entire life. She continuously emphasized the importance of education. And she also told me that in this country, in the United States, as a Black person and as a Black woman, I was going to have to be better than everyone else just to be considered as good as them, just to be noticed. And so I focused in school. I was very focused. I was a good student. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school in Los Angeles. The nuns who ran it were fierce. They taught us to be independent women. And I did quite well in school, and with a full ride to Stanford University, where I earned both my bachelor's and master's degrees. So, and then continuing with that, when I graduated, I taught school. And, my mother would say, I was hoping to become a doctor, organic chemistry, put me on a different path. And when I told her I wanted to teach and go into education, she said, this country doesn't value that. They don't value their teachers like other countries. In Jamaica, they valued it. In many other countries, they value teachers. And so she was concerned about me and concerned, about my career path. And I said, I have to. And I taught in Palo Alto, right here in Silicon Valley. And then I also taught in Oakland, right across the bay, in West Oakland, where all the students just about all qualified for free or reduced lunch and lived in public housing. Stark disparities, stark realities for those students I had in Palo Alto, wealthier community, the students I had in Oakland. And it was then that I realized I needed to do something about the inequities that were just right in front of me. And so I pursued working in nonprofits. I worked in public agencies and foundations. Everything I've done since teaching has been focused on equity and working to help individuals and communities who are facing vulnerable circumstances and unfair circumstances and lacks of opportunity that are no fault of their own. And so again, that thread that my mother had kept saying about, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I felt very fortunate throughout my career because of my education and the opportunities that Stanford afforded me and the doors it opened for me, that I have been really fortunate to be thrust in leadership positions, both in nonprofits and then later in foundations. I also worked in higher education. I had leadership positions at Stanford University and Arizona State University. And every single career I've had has been about creating opportunity, creating equity, and helping to move people and their lives and communities forward. So lesson learned is no matter where you are, no matter where you come from, you can always help. You can always give back. And, I put my head down and worked really hard to be where I am today.
And that truly is a big lesson for anyone worldwide, regardless of the opportunities afforded to us. I think you can make a difference. One person can make a change. I know it sounds cliche, but it is so important. The way out of poverty, the way out of underprivileged community that you may be born in. Yes, majority of the world might look like has received what we call the birth lottery, right? But literacy, education, working hard, and finding your way, carving your own path is one opportunity that you should provide to yourself as a child, as an adult, and continue down that path. I'm such a big believer in global literacy, increasing those rates, and truly elevating our children who are the future of the world and shaping that. Because I think besides anything, whether you go in and start working to provide for your family, really just the long-term goal should be education and literacy. Absolutely. That is going to be your way out, your ticket out.
Completely. And my family, is from rural Jamaica. Right. My mother didn't have running water when she was growing up. They had, tanks of water that they would collect from the rain. It was, global poverty is real. And there are ways to, like you said, help folks through education. That is absolutely the doorway to opportunity, no matter where you are.
And so tell us during this long, impactful career you have, maybe tell us a story or two that can motivate or inspire people of challenges that you might have faced and how you stood up to that challenge. Or perhaps someone, in our world might be coming across as an underrepresented minority and feeling low, unmotivated. What kind of a story would help inspire their change to uplift themselves?
Right. I think about transcendence, which is elevation, right? Elevating of circumstances. And my husband always tells me that I've transcended so many incredibly tough circumstances. I talked about the circumstances that I was born into and my mother was born into. And I always had this thought that I can do it. I can do it. My mother brought me this little wooden block that says, she believed that she could, so she did. And it's that belief in yourself. Sometimes it may feel like nobody else is around you believing in you. But if you believe in yourself, I absolutely believe that you can transcend the circumstances that you were born into. I also was fortunate to have people around me, whether they were teachers or mentors early in my career, who believed in me. And I was inquisitive and I would ask tons of questions and just to learn more and gain more. And that's also, I think, not a secret. It's a key to unlock opportunity. Belief in yourself, identifying those who can help you and who believe in you. They are there. Sometimes you have to seek them out. Sometimes they come to you. Those folks who may be listening who are from unfortunate circumstances, countries or areas of countries that don't have much. But even those here in the United States, I've transcended personal abuse in my past. I was a single mother for a majority of my son's life. I had 2 bad marriages, and now I'm in a great one. That we all face it, and it is possible with belief in yourself and, again, support. You don't need an entire tribe sometimes. Sometimes it's 1 or 2 people that you can connect with and rely on and talk with and just get the kind of connection. And I've always had that throughout my career. So.
And besides that, any other advice for young professionals out there?
Yeah. Belief in yourself. belief that one, there is a reason that you were hired, or there's a reason you were hired, you're good enough to be where you're at. And two, you may not know everything about the work that's in front of you. So stop, listen, learn from others who have been with you, learn around you, always be ready to absorb more and to learn more. That is something that I learned easily. I was thrust into a leadership position right after I taught. I worked at a nonprofit, and pretty quickly I was thrust into a leadership position running the nonprofit. The executive director had fallen ill, and I didn't know anything about running a nonprofit. The others who worked there were older than I was. They were much more experienced, but they said, you can do it. We need somebody in the front office. So I had to learn how to write grants. I had to learn how to write evaluation reports. I had to learn to raise money. I had to learn how to keep the accounting books. And I looked towards somebody who had funded us, and he surrounded me with other executive directors and other leaders who I could follow and who I could talk with and who showed me how to work. That is really critical when you're just getting started, is to really absorb from people who have been there and who you can learn from, but also bringing your own flavor and your own style and your own authenticity to the work.
Social impact-driven change has contributed to societal transformations by putting the spotlight on the most important topics shaping today's world, whether it is injustice, climate change, but most important, illiteracy, right? Education, rights, what we're talking about. And has brought everyone together. But with power does come responsibility as a leader. So how do you, as a leader, keep your personal views aside and represent the true voice of the people?
Right. Well, first and foremost, in my professional career, I've always sought jobs that aligned with my values so that I wouldn't be in conflict day in and day out when I showed up to work. It is really hard for me to work somewhere where my values aren't aligned with the job I'm doing every day. I sit on boards, and the same thing, I'm on a private company board, and the work that they do align with my values. And so I think that's really, really critical for folks, as you know, especially younger folks or people of color who are coming up and trying to decide, you know, what career path to take. That to me, that's always been possible. As the leader of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, or a community foundation in general, we are responsible to our community. So this gets to personal views versus being the true voice of the people. We work to ensure day in and day out that we're listening to the people that we serve, that we hear what they care about. There is a movement in philanthropy where you trust the people that you are funding. You fund leaders in communities because they usually know the needs of their communities, the solutions that work for their communities, and they really just need the investment to get forward movement and progress in their communities. So the work I get to do, I'm very fortunate in doing, allows that to be true every day, that we listen to our communities. I created a community advisory council with over 20 leaders, and they're all leaders of color. And they tell us, my team and I, what is important. What are they hearing from the people that they serve? Where are the gaps in resources or services? Where are solutions really working and can scale and just needs they just need the resources to make it happen? So, you know, that is part and parcel of what we do at the Silicon Valley Community Foundation and the work that we do. That can be true from wherever you are, right? So who are your customers? Who are your clients? Who are you listening to? When you're deciding what products, what services, how you are going to show up in your work, and how you're going to show up, whether you're in a company or a nonprofit or an NGO or a government position, who are you there to serve? And are you truly listening to them? Are you truly understanding where they come from and what their needs are, as well as what assets they bring, the things that you can build on in their lives and in their communities? So that's what I would say. to folks who may not be in the same kind of position that I am, in terms of that is the true work that I get to do every day with my team. It's really, we are very fortunate to do what we get to do.
Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful life stories. You're such an inspirational woman. If there was a billboard, and this being our last question, so if there was a billboard with your name and face on it and a quote, what would be that quote?
She believed that she could, so she did.
Ah, beautiful. And what a way for us to end our fall season with an inspiring agent of change. Thank you, Nicole, for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Nikki. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Likewise.
Hi, I'm Shazia Siddiqui. I'm a board certified art therapist and the founder and CEO of Let's Art About It, which is an art therapy based corporate and community wellness provider. I'm so excited to be here today with 180 Elevate. There are so many different ways to find well-being, and I just love how 180 Elevate focuses on elevating our consciousness and shifting our perspectives to make positive changes in our lives. So for this month's theme on biohacking, I will be guiding you through some art techniques that I've curated to help you maximize your potential. So what we'll be doing is we're going to start with an introduction to the benefits of art making, as well as some of the science behind it. Like, why is it effective? What's the research say? After that, we're going to engage in some actual expressive art making, and we're going to be focusing on obtaining optimal performance through 3 different techniques. High performers, like, they are known to be great at managing their stress. They are people who understand their emotions, and they have resilience, like they are resilient in the face of challenges. And so one of the art exercises that we're going to be going through today is going to tackle all 3 of these. In addition to that exercise, we are going to do another exercise that will be focused on increasing gratitude. Now, gratitude has been a theme that's come up a few times so far in this month's theme. And so we are going to be talking a little bit about visual gratitude and the benefits of that and how we can engage in it. So when it comes to the science of creativity, there are quite a few research studies that have shown that there are many mental as well as physiological benefits to art making. So to start, art making, it fosters stress reduction, emotional expression, as well as emotional regulation. It increases social interaction and it reduces loneliness. It allows for self-reflection as well as for mindfulness. It builds up self-confidence and it boosts self-esteem. It can articulate what words are often not able to do, bringing complex thoughts that are often difficult, as well as difficult feelings into our view. It also helps improve our brain cognition, and it has a positive impact on depression. It lowers the risk of developing dementias. It reduces blood pressure. It bolsters the immune system, and it fights inflammation. So we, again, are going to be focusing on a few specific things. We're going to be focusing on stress relief, understanding emotions, resiliency, as well as gratitude. So when it comes to stress reduction, studies have actually shown that making art, it reduces your cortisol levels. Your cortisol is your stress making hormone, and it also raises your serotonin levels, which can actually increase our happiness and change how we experience the world around us. Another thing that it can do is it actually can create this meditative flow state where our mind is focused on the present. So you see, depression is when our mind is focused on the past, and anxiety is when our mind is focused on the future. So when we are immersed in art making, we can find relief from two of the most prominent mental health challenges of our time. So second, understanding emotions. So as we mentioned before in the benefits, art making, it actually helps us reveal and understand our emotions that we often don't have the words to express. So basically it's transcending words and revealing things that might be hidden like in our subconscious or things that maybe are just a little bit too convoluted for us to make sense of. And so what art making does is it helps you see yourself as if you were a different person, somebody who's outside of you. You know, a lot of times it's easier to understand other people's issues than it is to understand ourselves, right? So art making, it sort of puts what's inside out so that you can see yourself from a different lens. So what about resiliency? Resiliency can be coming up with unique solutions in challenging situations. And so what happens is that when we do this, like it actually stimulates our brain to grow new neurons and new connections between our brain cells, which actually increases our brain's neuroplasticity. So this actually makes us more resilient, like even more resilient in the face of change and more resistant to stress. So you gain access to the visual cortex of your brain that holds every memory of yours, like since your childhood. And this is what happens when you are engaging in art making. And so you have access to everything in that moment, in those moments that you are engaging in art and creativity. And you can have access to all of your strengths that you've tucked away over time. You basically have access to a powerhouse of tools that can help you through anything and everything. The most important one being that little child that you once were who believed that you could do anything. So we are going to be doing a second experiential, and that one is going to be focused on gratitude. So the science behind that is that when we create a visual depiction of what makes us happy, our brain engages in a neural process called value tagging, which focuses your subconscious more on what you love and may want more of in your life, while filtering out anything that's not relevant. So doing this at night before bed makes the process like even more effective. So that being said, let's actually just go ahead and get started. Let's start making some art. So what you are going to need for today is just a couple of pieces of paper. So just two blank pieces of paper, like printer paper like this, or anything that you might have around you. Even a scrap paper is fine. And you'll need a pen. So a pen or a pencil, really, you can use anything for this. Now, if you have other things like a set of markers, if you have crayons or anything that lying around that's easy to access, you're welcome to incorporate those into today's exercises. So, so let's go ahead and get started. So wherever you are, go ahead and get comfortable in your seat or your space and start to take some deep breaths in and out. Now, as you're breathing, start to look inward. Notice where you might be feeling any stress or tension in your body. Notice where you might be holding it. Is it in your neck, in your shoulders? Just really pay attention to where that stress might be held. And then imagine that you could see what it looks like in the form of lines and shapes and even colors. Take some deep breaths again. And now with every exhale, imagine that you are breathing out that tension outside of you and that it's now being placed onto this paper with every exhale. Go ahead and use any drawing tools that you might have around you that you were able to collect. So I have a jar of markers here. And whatever that stress looks like that you imagined in your body, go ahead and start to draw it on this paper. Allow this paper to be a holding space and allow your drawing to evolve into whatever it needs to be. What you saw originally can be a starting point, but just trust the process and allow this stress to manifest any way you'd like onto this paper. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It can just be a scribble, anything that feels good to release. So go ahead and spend however much time you need. When you're done, just hold your paper in your hands and look at your image closely. Look at each part. Maybe have a dialogue with your piece. Maybe you could write the dialogue on the margins of your paper or on a scrap paper if you like. And try to find out what it's trying to say to you. Maybe let it tell its story. Find out what it needs. Let it be heard and seen by the one person it wants to be seen by the most, which is you. So next, what we're going to be doing is transforming this picture into one that represents hope. Now, take a picture of it if you can right now so that you can see the before and the after. There are two different ways that you can do this that I'll describe and you can choose from, but feel free to take this however way you would like to. So one idea is that you can take any of your drawing tools and draw something into the picture that you feel the picture needs in order to be cared for and to feel at peace. Maybe something peaceful in the background that can remind you of feeling grounded or centered in times of chaos or uncertainty. So that's one way that you could go about doing this, adding images into your existing picture. Another thing that you can do is you can actually take this entire piece and just rip it into pieces, maybe into small pieces of confetti or strips. Rip it, and then you can take the pieces and you can move them around your desk, and you can move them to create maybe a symbol of hope or peace. It doesn't have to be a symbol. It can just be designs or shapes that feel soothing and grounding for you, something that just makes you feel good and at peace to look at and to create. Spend as much time as you need to on this. I'm going to share one more exercise with you on gratitude that can actually help you with increasing positive thinking. Now, this is a great exercise to do right before bed and after you have shut down social media for the night. So for this, you'll need just a pen and a paper again. And what you're going to do is take the paper and fold it as if you were folding a letter to put into an envelope. And then open it up so that you have 3 parts stacked on top of each other, kind of like an Instagram feed. So go ahead and put that in front of you. Now think of 3 things that you are grateful for in your life and draw them into these 3 separate spaces. Now, this exercise is very similar to gratitude journaling, but instead you're using the added power of art making that we discussed earlier in this class. So take your time on this, and that's all for today. Thank you for your participation, and thank you 180 Elevate for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us today and elevating yourself. Charity should begin at home, but should not stay there. At 180 Elevate, it is our honor to support local and global philanthropies, which make an impact on the lives of our beautiful children and the world in of itself.
What would this world look like if we all felt cared for? Let's co-create that new paradigm. If you would like to consider joining our philanthropic mission, please consider donating at 180elevate.com. And next is just a glimpse into one of the many philanthropies our organization supports.
What gives me hope about Silicon Valley are the very people that I get to engage with every day. It's the people in community who are working with their neighbors and making things happen and making incredible impact. There are people still out there who are doing good and want to do good. They still want to build up their communities. They want to help their neighbors. The people who care, the people who haven't given up. They haven't given up on themselves and they haven't given up on each other. My top priorities when I first became president and CEO of the Community Foundation were 1, to build trust with all of our stakeholders, community leaders, donors, public officials, all of our constituents. And the second thing was to put the community back in the Community Foundation. Building community, advancing community, and where everyone here can thrive.
Something that we really appreciate from the foundation is this holistic approach, not just investing in one thing or the other, but actually the whole safety network that it takes in order for everyday people to be engaged in public life. What the reality in the Bay, and especially in the peninsula and Silicon Valley, is that the crisis is now. We're in the middle of a real crisis in terms of housing, immigration, displacement. It requires long-term funding and a constant dialogue to figure out how do we change what we're doing, what's working, what's not working. That's really unique and it's rooted in relationship.
Understanding the community. That's the biggest challenge, and oftentimes why corporations, government systems aren't that effective in engaging the community, because oftentimes they develop policies and practices absent of the community's input. You have to have trusted partners that you can depend on, that when they say they're going to do something, you know they're going to do it. It's about trust.
The pandemic laid bare some deep health and economic racial disparities in our community. Those existed before the pandemic. Unless we come together, those deep disparities are still going to be here. What I love about the Community Foundation is that they are helping real people on the ground here in Silicon Valley. We have the resources, the capacity, the diversity, and the innovation here to tackle any of our community's problems.
What is the thing that touches your heart, or that you feel in your gut that there's something wrong about that one thing or that one issue? What is that? Or what are those things? Because that's where we start.